Did you know that we all have unconscious bias that has an impact on our thoughts, behaviors, and what we say? And we often don't even realize that it's happening. So what is unconscious bias? Every day we are exposed to millions and millions bits of data and information. And so our brains have a natural tendency, a natural filter system to help us sort through this information and really just focus on what's important to us at the time. Research suggests that our conscious brain can only process about 40 bits of data at any point in time. But as you can imagine, even just sitting here right now, you will have lots of different pieces of information coming at you just by the things that are in your room right now, for example. So we rely on some automated mechanisms in your brain to really sort through that information and function in this world without being too overwhelmed. And this has developed, of course, based on our survival instincts and survival mechanisms long time ago, when we really had to figure out, is there any danger? Are there dangerous animals around? Or are there people from a different tribe that might be there to harm us? So our brains are wired to quickly determine whether somebody is dangerous or not. So we'll quickly look for features that look familiar or similar for us to make a decision whether we should run or fight, or whether this is someone from our tribe, from our group. Back in the day, as you can imagine, this was probably very helpful because we could then make quick decisions. But nowadays, it can have an impact on how we interact with others, because this unconscious bias can lead us to interacting more positively with people that look and feel and sound similar to us. And we might start to act more standoffish or negatively towards people that are different. So in life and death situations, it's very helpful. But in other situations, it can actually lead us to discriminate against people or harm our relationships. So we judge people within milliseconds just based on their visual features, like what they look like, their skin color, their age, their voice, their clothes. It doesn't always allow us to make the right judgments. Let's now talk about unconscious bias in the leadership context. I want to share with you 4 examples of situations where your unconscious bias could get in the way of making the right decision or discriminating against certain people. It can manifest in various ways. Let's look at hiring and promotions. If we have a natural tendency to look and prefer people that are similar to us, you can imagine that it can have an impact on who we hire for a position and also who we provide with a promotion. Of course, when we have to sort through hundreds of resumes, it can be really hard to figure out why and which resume, which document, which candidate is the best. And so if we're not conscious about it, we might fall back to looking for similarities in maybe educational background or cultural background, for example. And with promotions, we might only provide opportunities to people that feel similar to us because we might trust them a little bit more. And the problem there is that it can lead to a lack of diversity in your team and in your workforce. And it can lead to discrimination and an overall culture of mistrust. You want to be more aware of your bias so that you don't make these decisions blindly and just led by this internal unconscious bias. Scenario number 2, performance evaluation. Your bias, your unconscious bias, can have a direct impact on how you view the performance of your employees. You might rate people from certain groups, backgrounds differently in comparison to one another. This can, of course, also lead to a lot of frustration and confusion within your team. Another area where this might impact is the relationships and communication that you might have. You might be spending more or less time with people based on your internal filters and based on what feels easier for you, based on your unconscious bias. So you might communicate differently to the different team members purely based on visual cues that you might have. And it can have a big impact on team dynamics and collaboration and your overall culture. Your unconscious bias can shape the dimensions and the composition of your team. It will shape how you communicate with one another, how you communicate within your team members, who you promote, who you give exposure to. And so this has a lot of dynamic variables that can have a big impact on the culture in your team. So as you've seen, your unconscious bias can have a big impact on your leadership and how you interact with the people in your team or your stakeholders. So it's important that we start to address and become more aware of our unconscious bias. Here are a few more videos around unconscious bias that will help you understand and unpack this topic a bit more, and I'm looking forward to seeing you soon.